with John, and let's have John come out here and see who has the crush on him. Here's John. Did you think Donna had the crush on you?
Did I? No, we're good friends.
Well, guess what? It's Scott that has the crush on you.
You lied to me.
You lied to me. We're looking at the prelude to a murder. Sounds like fun. Ends up with murder. Let's take another look at a clip from the Jenny Jones show, if you would, Pookie.
Can you tell us what your status is? Are you involved with anybody, or?
No, but I am definitely heterosexual, I guess you could say.
They weren't sure, John. They weren't sure, and then Donna and Scott both said, you know, anything could happen. Scott said anything could happen.
Anything could happen. They weren't sure. They weren't sure. They weren't sure if he was heterosexual or not. Anything could happen. And what happened? John murdered Scott. Why? Whose responsibility is that? Anyone other than John? We'll talk about that tonight. Let's see, does it have anything to do with the responsibility of Jenny Jones? Let's take a look at Jenny Jones on the witness stand in the trial.
The time that you've been involved as a host of the Jenny Jones show, how often would you say you've participated in the topic discussions?
We don't really have topic discussions.
Now, you say we. Who is we?
We at the show don't, as a rule, have topic discussions.
Okay. How much advance notice or warning do you get of a particular topic of any given show?
Well, I'm not necessarily given advance warning. If I want to know what the topic is, I look. Sometimes I don't look until the night before the show.
So clearly, according to Jenny Jones, she has no responsibility here. Does anyone connected to the Jenny Jones show have any responsibility for setting this whole thing up that led to this murder? Let's take a look at the producer on the stand, producer of the Jenny Jones show.
John saying to you words to the effect, tell me if it's a guy. If it's a guy, I'm not coming.
No. I recall saying it could be a man or a woman.
You said to him it could be a man or a woman.
Yes.
But even that would be a lie, wouldn't it?
No.
Well, it couldn't be a woman, could it?
I told him it could be a man or a woman. It was his choice to come on.
But you knew it was a man, didn't you?
Yes.
So saying it could be a man or could be a woman was a lie, wasn't it?
I don't think so. I told him it could be a man or a woman.
Could it have been a woman?
No.
But you told John it could have been a woman, right?
Yes.
Isn't that a lie?
In
Told
your
him something that it couldn't have been.
Sure.
Okay.
So it wasn't anything to do with Jenny Jones' responsibility, and it was really, according to this producer, nothing to do with their responsibility. Is it ultimately Jonathan Schmidt's total responsibility? Is there any responsibility here for the talk show, for the Jenny Jones talk show? Why are they doing this? Why would they do this? There is a little bit of it. It could be a man or a woman, but they know it's a man. Any responsibility here? Why do it? What are we pushing for here? What are we after here? Let's take a look again at Jenny Jones on the stand. What's the reason? Why are we pushing the envelope here in these afternoon shows? Take a look, another look at Jenny Jones.
It's a fair statement that you possess a vested interest in the popularity of the show, isn't that correct?
Yes.
It's also a fair statement to make that popularity in show business lingo means ratings, isn't that correct?
Yes.
And ratings, again, in the show business lingo means money, correct?
Not necessarily, no.
Pretty much so, isn't that correct?
Not for me.
Isn't it true that as long as the ratings remain high, you're pretty much assured of a job as host on that show?
According to my contract, I'm assured of a job regardless of ratings.
Whether it's good or bad, is that
Yes.
correct? Certainly, if you anticipate going on in the business that you're in, you'd like it to remain high, wouldn't you?
I would prefer it, but it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what the ratings are. That's a new one. I didn't know you could do that. I'd love that. You know, it doesn't matter. I guess I'd have comedians on every night, you know, because that's what I like to do. Just, you know, that's what I'd like to do. I can't do it. Ratings, and what I think I should be doing with this hour on television isn't just talking to comedians. But Jenny Jones says it really doesn't matter. It does matter. It doesn't matter if you want to be there. It matters. The shows are getting more demanding, particularly the afternoon shows, where there's more competition, more is expected, higher ratings. In the past, they could have a rape victim, and now they have to have the rape victim confront the rapist. They are, in many cases, exploiting unstable people, and some of the shows even pay for therapists, I guess, to salve the conscience of the shows. Imagine having a guest where you had to pay for a therapist. You were making money because this guest appears, but we'll pay for your therapy. Feels like a bargain with the devil. A deal. The producer says you have to be a social worker, a therapist, and a used car salesman. Used car salesman. You have to get people to think this is okay, this is the right thing to do. There was one of the shows had a sister telling her sister on television, I've been sleeping with your boyfriend of 14 years. There was a lawsuit that was settled out of court on that one. Some of it's fake. A man confessed to sleeping with his wife's, with the family babysitter. Babysitter was sitting there, the wife was sitting there, the wife cried unendingly, understandably. The babysitter's boyfriend was there. It was a horrific experience. The wife couldn't stop sobbing. Man does all this on television. Turned out to be a Canadian comedy troupe. Oprah Winfrey, who is the most successful afternoon show, says she doesn't want to do anything like this, much less of this kind of thing, and she wants to do more substantial things, and she has been doing more substantial things, and the ratings have gone lower. If you want the ratings, you will do the most sensational thing you can do. And Jenny Jones' case forces us all to take a harder look at what are they doing? What would you do for money, for ratings? How far do you go for all of this? We'll go to a break now. We'll be back. We'll hear from Max Robbins, who's a senior editor of TV Guide, and Dennis Prager, who's a radio talk show host and a former television talk show host who has some interesting, both men have some interesting observations on this. And later, Jeffrey Feiger, who's the attorney for the Amador family, also the attorney for Jack Kevorkian, but he now represents the Amador family in a civil suit that will come to court next year, and we'll be joined by Jeffrey later. We'll go to a break and we'll hear what one of our ladies in the street had to say about all this. And when we come back, we'll talk about all of this, and then later, very brilliant actor Alan Arkin will join us. We'll see, would Alan Arkin ever host a show? Would he go on a show? So let's go to a break now and hear what our lady in the street had to say about the Jenny Jones show and what happened. If you would, Pookie.
If someone surprised me and says that there was a lesbian who was in love with me, I'd be a little shocked if not that I would kill somebody, but I would be angry, because I'd be embarrassed in front of millions of people. They want to shock you, and then we're accomplices because we want to be shocked and we watch. So while we say, no, 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 we don't want grotesque, we watch it to see the grotesqueness. Somewhere along the line, you have to have some responsibility. Someone, Jenny Jones, who says that she doesn't know what the program is about, she doesn't know what the copy is, she doesn't read it, she didn't look at it, all of that. I know she stated that in court. I know if it was the Rosemary Stewart show, I would be saying, okay, so what are we doing today, gang? If something has my name on it, I would go there and say, okay, so what, the day before, that day before the show, say, okay, so what's on the agenda today? Who are we killing today? What are we doing today? I think that's Jenny Jones' responsibility. She can't go up on stand and say, negligent to the whole thing. No.
She was lying. I mean, if you're the host of the show, you know what's going on.
I don't think they should fault her. The kid had a history of mental problems, you know. They should look into that a little more. But I don't like talk shows. I think most of them are stupid. It's a couple of them that I don't even know how. They have to be paying these people to go on the panel. There's no way anybody would get up there and act that ridiculous.
Last week, jurors began deliberating whether Jonathan Schmitz should be held responsible for shooting and killing Scott Amador after he confessed to having a crush on him during a taping of the Jenny Jones Show. With me to talk about this controversial trial is Max Robbins, a senior editor of TV Guide, where he also writes an insider column about the television business called The Robbins Report. He's in our Manhattan studio. In Fort Lauderdale is Dennis Prager, a radio talk show host and social commentator. In 1994, he had his own a daily national television talk show. Later in the hour, we'll be joined by Jeffrey Feiger, the attorney for the Amador family in the civil suit against the Jenny Jones Show. Dennis, what do you think?
Oh, I think with the obviously putting aside the horror of the murder, this is actually a healthy development, that some light be shed on the darkness that is so much of television talk shows. When I had my national TV show, I realized how easy it is to fall in and fall down in any standards that you might hold for yourself. I was told it was a great line, and it really hit me. They said, Dennis, look, have more sex and have more of this stuff, then your ratings will be high, and then you can do what you want. And I thought, God, that is very tempting, because then I could really talk about what I care about. But then it occurred to me, if I get my ratings by appealing to the lowest parts of the human soul, how am I going to ever get out of it? Because I will have drawn my audience that way. And this Mephistophelian deal, when you cited it yourself, it's a deal with the devil, is made by most of the shows.
Max, what do you think?
Well, to a great degree, I agree with Dennis and your people in the street. I mean, Jenny Jones is responsible for what goes on her show. Her name's on it. She's willing to take the profits. And I think that what the American public is seeing with this is the seamy underbelly of this stuff, what goes on behind the scenes, and how these shows exploit a lot of people who don't have a whole lot going on in their life to make a buck. I think it's that simple.
You know what was most depressing, Charles, was the trial scene of the producer, one of the producers of the show, asked, did you lie when you said it could be a woman? And she said, no, I didn't lie. He said, but you knew it could, and the attorney said, but you knew it was going to be a man. And that was classic, because that is the moral level of many of the people, not all by any means, but many of the people who produce TV talk shows. There's just no sense that I need to live by a standard that's higher than myself. Ratings are everything. Also, her denial, I mean, can you believe it?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter to her what her ratings are?
Yeah.
That's like it doesn't matter to a fish if he has water.
Yeah. Dennis, what happened with your TV talk show? You obviously, did you go down the road of sex or whatever they wanted you to do?
I did one time, which proved to me how problematic television is. I once allowed the subject was legitimate to me, very legitimate. Should a woman wear sexy lingerie for her husband? Which I think is a very good topic. You know, how much should a woman make herself into an object for her husband? And very legitimate, and I had a psychologist on, and a woman head of Fredericks. But they said, Dennis, let us just have a model on too for the show. It's sweeps week. And I gave in. It was the one time I gave in. And I'm happy I gave in for only one reason. That was the highest rated show all 3 times it aired. And it proved to me how difficult on commercial TV it is to live by any higher standard. The highest rated, you know how many people therefore watch TV with their remote control device? It's disconcerting.
And what did you do generally? What kind of topics did you deal with, Dennis?
Everything from moral New Year's resolutions. Not I'll lose weight, but I'll be a better human being next year.
Right.
I won't take stuff from the office. To, believe it or not, a debate with Carl Sagan over whether God exists.
Right.
I mean, it was good stuff. It was entertaining stuff, but It's not the stuff that gets you ratings in the first 6 months that you must get your ratings.
And what time of day were you on, Dennis?
All over the country, different hours.
Different hours. But in the afternoon, pretty much, or sometime in the morning or
no,
night?
like in New York.
Could be anywhere.
Absolutely. New York, it was 12.
Shows that go for the, somebody once said you used to be able to book a show with a dictator. Now you have to have a dictator of a large country and 5 dictators of small countries. I mean, is it true? It's absolutely necessary to survive in that marketplace?
I think there's an audience for that stuff, for the teas and sleaze, but you also see somebody like Rosie O'Donnell doing extremely well with a real kind of friendly entertainment show. You see Regis and Kathy Lee, who've been going strong for a lot of years, doing stuff that's pretty lighthearted. So I don't necessarily think you have to go in that direction. But one thing, Chuck, is that Jenny Jones on the stand said, hey, the ratings don't matter. We look back in the record, and her show was really on the verge of cancellation after its first year. And they changed the format. They went right down into the gutter, and they did it to get numbers. There's no doubt about it. And she really was hand in hand in the decision-making process in that.
You know, but Max, the 2 shows you cited, Rosie and Regis and Kathy Lee, one is on at 9. I don't know if this is true across the country. Here in New York, one is on at 9 and one is on at 10. Is it more competitive at 3 and 4 in the afternoon, a larger amount of people watching?
There's a lot of competition in that arena, but sure, Oprah's numbers aren't what they once were, but they're still right at the top of the charts, and she's doing a show, I think, that really a lot of times has a very positive social message, and she has an incredible following.
Has she changed, Max?
I think that Oprah has changed a bit, but she never really went into the gutter the way some of these other shows did. Certainly she's dealing with matters of sexuality and whatnot, where there's going to be a lot of interest, a lot of tune-in interest, but I don't think she's in the business of embarrassing people publicly on television.
Dennis, have you ever seen a place where you can spot more lies than in a courtroom?
Don't start me, because the only area of American life I have greater contempt for than much of TV is the courtroom.
I mean, it's unbelievable when people say search for the truth. I mean, if you ever want to hear something other than the truth, you put somebody on the stand under oath. It's astonishing.
And likewise with the lawyers, the search is for a victory, not for truth.
And yet they keep saying it. So what happens? Here we are, Dennis. I mean, these people they have shows. They employ, I don't know, dozens of people anyway. They want to survive. What do? You make a deal with the devil or you don't. Is that it?
That's right, and people do listen, a lot of people make the deal with the devil. As I often say on my talk show, the only form of prostitution in America that is illegal is the one that does the least harm.
Now, on your show, you're on the radio from what time to what time?
Noon to 3 in L.A.
Noon to 3 in L.A.
Yeah.
And I've heard it's a fabulous show.
Thank you very much.
I guess it's easier to survive in the radio. Is that what it is?
I am convinced that the ear is a deeper organ than the eye. The eye, truly, the eye is deceived incredibly easily. Your show is an exception, and I'm not saying it to patronize you. I've been on a lot of shows, and I don't say that. But generally speaking, television appeals to the most superficial of our sensory organs, the eye. I much rather know, for example, what a blind person thought at a dinner party than a sighted person. I have a feeling that they'll have a very different and deeper understanding often of the dialogue that went on.
Max, do you deal with this at TV Guide? Do you have to have something flashy on the cover, or what's inside? I mean, is it a problem everywhere? I mean, we know here when we do a show about O.J. Simpson, the ratings are going to be 2 or 3 times higher than anything else we could talk about. Now, it's true that the public is interested. Now, how much do you address yourself to public desires, and how much to what you think is important?
I think there's a mix. I think when there's discussions and what you're going to put on the cover, you're talking about things that will attract people into the magazine. But we really try and have a rich mix of things that are both serious and lighthearted. We are a magazine that looks to inform and entertain.
Let me give you an example, if I may.
Hold on, I want to hear that, but we have to go to a break, and then we'll come back, and we have a short segment, then we'll be joined by Jeffrey
I just lost the
Feiger.
line.
Who is attorney for the Scott Amador's family, also, of course, the attorney for Jack Kevorkian. Jeffrey always has a lot Jeffrey's always furious about something. So we'll go to a break, we'll come back with a short segment, and then we'll be joined by Jeffrey Feiger. I'll be right back. Detroit is Jeffrey Feiger, the attorney for the Amador family, whose son Scott was killed by Jonathan Schmitz. He has filed a civil suit against the Jenny Jones Show for their involvement with his client's death. The case will be tried sometime next year. We may hear the verdict on Tuesday, Jeffrey. That would impact on the civil suit?
Yeah, it'll speed it along. Obviously, we couldn't do anything until this criminal trial was over, since Schmitz is also a defendant in the case that we filed against Warner Brothers and the Jenny Jones Show. And we had to wait until that proceeded to verdict.
This is a short segment, Jeffrey. Maybe I can get this one question into you. What in the O.J. Simpson case and in this case, there is a civil trial.
Right.
In what criminal case of murder or someone losing their life, what makes something eligible to be a civil trial?
Because the two burdens of proof are different. The fact is, in the Simpson case and in this case, you've had a wrongful death. You've had somebody else cause somebody else's injury, and there's a civil remedy for it. The parties aren't the same. One, the prosecutor is pursuing the case, and the other, the family of the victim, is pursuing the case. And the burdens of proof are different. So regardless of what happens in either the civil or the criminal case, they don't impact or negate the other.
But why couldn't, only 30 seconds here, sorry, but why wouldn't every murder case be eligible for a civil trial?
It is, but most murderers don't have any money.
Is that right? And the
Yeah.
Amador and the Schmitz family has money?
No, but the Jenny Jones Show is obviously responsible.
Your suit is against the Jenny Jones Show.
Sure. Schmitz is not the target
So
defendant.
anybody who commits murder or is accused of committing murder, we have to go to a break, if there's money involved, could go to a civil trial.
Sure, or
Okay.
if they're not.
We'll go to a break, be right back with my guest.
CNBC.
Some of the shows that I see people going crazy with relationships and stuff like that, you know, it's like they bring out the worst in people.
I don't think it's her fault at all. I think this man was a sick man, and he would have exploded some other time. This just happened here. It was not her fault.
Jeffrey, make the case. You think it has responsibility there for Jenny Jones?
But for the Jenny Jones Show, Scott Amador would not be dead. Jonathan Schmitz would not be being tried for murder, and we wouldn't be talking about this right now. They are the precipitant cause. They caused it. They wanted to cause embarrassment, humiliation. I can't say that they wanted to precipitate a murder, but they had to know that that was a possibility.
So your civil suit is against Jenny Jones. Is it also against Jonathan Schmitz's family?
Sure. No, not his family, against him. How far we'll proceed with that, I don't know. But obviously, this is the suit that we really have filed, and frankly, that's the case against the Jenny Jones show. You were really seeing two trials being tried at the same time. Jenny Jones and all of her producers, when they'd come into this criminal case, they really didn't care what happened to Schmitz. In fact, they wanted him to be found guilty of first-degree murder. What they were watching, their P's and Q's about Charles, was the civil suit coming up. That's what they were worried about.
Mm-hmm. Max, you think the Jenny Jones Show has responsibility here?
Well, I think Jonathan Schmidt is the one who committed the murder. I do think, though, that those who put on that show and are involved with it, including Jenny Jones, have to really ask themselves how involved they were. And I think I would agree. I would agree with Mr. Feiger that they have some responsibility in this whole thing. They certainly do. I don't see how they can just wash their hands of the affair.
Dennis, what do you think?
I'm somewhat torn on this. Are we going to start suing the U.S. government for impoverished areas because a guy who was poor raped or murdered? I'm a little scared about this, even though I completely believe that they have moral responsibility. If I leave $100 lying around in my hotel room and a poor chambermaid takes it, is she guilty of theft? Totally. Yes. And am I some way morally responsible for her taking the money? Yes, I am. But I don't think you could bring me to trial for having left the money there. No, that's not even a good analogy. That isn't what happened here. The Jenny Jones Show developed this Same Crush television show. They brought the participants to Chicago to film it. They encouraged them to act a certain way. They plied Scott Amador with alcohol. They wanted him to act outrageous. They hid the facts of what was really going to happen from Schmitz. Schmitz had told them he does not want
to have a same-sex crush revealed if that was their plan, and they went ahead and did it anyways. They did it in the most sensational, embarrassing way, and then they can't wash their hands and say, oh, wait a second, now that Schmitz has gone nuts and murdered somebody as a result of what he thought was embarrassment and humiliation, we didn't have any responsibility for that. They had a direct responsibility.
If just out of curiosity, if I plied a woman with liquor and had her wear incredibly inappropriately sexy clothing into a place, and the guy raped her, could I be sued for the rape?
If you hired her to do that, if this was some kind of job that you had retained her for, and you put her in a position of harm.
If that's the American law, then that's the American law.
That is the American law.
I think Jenny Jones and her show are responsible. I'm not sure that moral responsibility and legal responsibility are identical.
They're not, but in this particular case, they are, because in this case, and I think you've hit it right on the head, they are forgetting the legal responsibility, the moral responsibility.
Oh, absolutely.
They were they ply this trash talk TV, they ply the controversy, they ply this in terms of audience rating, and that translates into advertising dollars for them.
Without murder, you could in fact sue these shows almost every day for psychological harm done to a lot of its clients, or whatever they're called.
That would be more difficult, but a better analogy is yelling fire in a crowded theater. You may not be the person who trampled the other person to death, but you set off the trampling. You set off the stampede.
Well, the reason it's different is all normal people would leave if somebody yelled fire. If a gay man announced he had a crush on me in front of America, though I am resolutely heterosexual, I would actually be flattered. I like to be found attractive. It doesn't matter.
You know, and that brings up the other undercurrent of this show, and that isn't what we're talking about. This is also exposing what exists in this country, homophobia, because if this was a show in which a woman had revealed her sex crush or opposite sex crush to Jonathan Schmitz, and he had gone out and murdered her, then everyone would say this guy's guilty of first-degree murder. However, because it was a man, he may be found guilty of a lesser included offense than first-degree murder. What does that reveal about this country?
I don't think that that's the case. I think if a gay guy had a woman say it, I don't agree that it shows homophobia. It shows homophobia on Schmidt's part. I don't think it shows it on society.
No, it does, because you couldn't get away with defending in a court case that you killed a woman because she said she had an attraction to you. But I'm telling you, the defense in the Schmitz case is that he was so humiliated by virtue of a gay man exposing his feelings about him that justified him going crazy and murdering him.
It's certainly the Jenny Jones show was pushing the homophobia button. That's the whole point. I mean, they wanted to titillate people with what to a lot of American society is something forbidden. And
that's
really,
the defense in the criminal case too, guys. I got news for you. The jury was picked specifically to capitalize on the concept that if a man reveals that he has a crush about another man on national TV, that other man might feel so embarrassed and humiliated because of homosexual implications that he would be justified in a lesser degree to go and kill him than first-degree murder. That's the defense in this case.
Jeffrey, do you think we have a problem in our society? I'm thinking of the Texaco, no question about that, but in the Texaco case where these men are tape recording themselves with their own knowledge of these, all the black jelly beans stick to the bottom of the jar and all these racist comments, and they kind of think that somehow they'll be able to get away with it. The biggest problem seems to me that all moral and ethical considerations go out the window when money is involved. And the same thing with the Jenny Jones case. Do you think this young woman producer who testified, well, a man or a woman, I mean, it could have been I said it could be a man or a woman. Do you think all these judgments go out the window because money, ratings, money's involved, all ethics and morality go away?
Well, not all ethics, but they have no real scheme of ethics, and maybe this will instill it in them. What they were looking for, because they're looking for sensationalism, Charles, it translates into audience rating, which translates into advertising dollars, which translates into money for these television shows. So in a sense, though, that is their main concern, and all other concerns like the safety of the participants go away. Look at Geraldo's show. Geraldo, I know, has now changed his the concept of his show, but he had a riot on his show. And believe me, he precipitated it. He brought two groups together that were so incendiary that you knew sooner or later somebody was going to pick up a chair and hit somebody else over the head with it.
I'm just curious, Jeffrey, do you feel that the O.J. Simpson defense team was incendiary, or do you restrict your comments to television?
No. The defense team in the criminal case obviously was incendiary.
Good.
I think that set back race relations in this country farther than Johnny Cochran would ever admit it.
Yes, and it set back your profession in the eyes of much of America.
Well, they're wrong about that. And the reason
well,
they're wrong
we're
about
right about it. I think
the reason they're wrong about it, unfortunately, is that everyone is entitled to the best defense they can get. And that was Johnny Cochran's duty.
That is as amoral as every show is entitled to the best ratings it can get.
Unfortunately,
because
they teach us
the best defense often means I'll ignore truth.
Well, as a matter of fact, our system is set up under the theory that it is more important that 1,000 guilty people go free than one innocent man.
Is it okay if you're Johnny Cochran to say this is a search for the truth? Is that all right, or is that immoral?
I don't know if it's immoral. I think it's straight. If he says it outside the courtroom, I think he's being disingenuous. If he says it in the courtroom, he's doing his job.
Right. So in other words, right, so the same moral principles that exist in society don't exist in a courtroom.
That's right.
And that's why we have the feelings we do about criminal defense.
But you must understand, in the weight of society comes down against the defendant in the criminal courtroom. Therefore, under our law, you are allowed to do things like that to protect not the guilty, to protect the innocent.
Under our law, you're allowed to bring on bring lousy shows onto television. Again, legal and moral are separate.
Lousy. We're not talking about lousy shows now. Now we're talking about a show that precipitated violence, harm to a person brought on the show. Under those circumstances, we're not simply talking about moral responsibility. If I invite you into my place of business and I create a situation where somebody clubs you over the head with a hammer, I have some responsibility. That's exactly what Jenny Jones did.
Well, we've come to the end of this, and I just want to say to Max, Dennis, and Jeffrey, I find all you men attractive, and I hope you're comfortable with that. We'll go to a break, and we'll be back with a very attractive Alan Arkin, who will comment on all of this. Be right back.
Well, why don't you put pen to paper and set the record straight? It's about time you start writing again anyway.
I'm afraid dead men don't write very well.
No, that's not true. All the best writers are dead.
Well, that's the most truthful thing you've said today.
No, listen to me. It's because while you're dead, you have nothing to lose. You can be completely courageous. Find yourself a woman, start writing again.
A woman?
A woman.
Alan Arkin has had a long career as an actor, director, composer, and author. He is starring in the new film Mother Night. You know, the Jenny Jones case that we were talking about prior to you coming out here, one of the problems they ran into, I know that you have a television set, but you're not that familiar with the case, so I'm not going to give you the hard question. But they didn't really tell the fella that was ultimately committed the murder what the show was about. They didn't really tell him this was about, they said it could be a man and a woman that was your secret admirer. In other words, they didn't really tell him what was happening. When I used to come visit you,
You would never tell me what was happening.
and I would come there and you'd say to me, and this is true, he'd say, what is it you're going to talk about today? Remember this?
Yeah.
You wanted me to tell you ahead of time what the agenda was.
Because you used to surprise me all the time. You used to do strange.
And you'd prefer if
you used to like to
come.
play with people to see what their reactions were going to be, and I wanted to know.
You want to know right up front what we were going to. So
What
you
the
wanted me
game
to set
was.
the agenda.
Yeah, right.
So you would not consider yourself to be the ideal person to appear on an afternoon talk show that some time they can do ambush type of things.
Well, I just wouldn't pay much attention anymore. I've gotten much more philosophical. I say, oh, that's nice.
So you wouldn't react to much.
I don't think so. Why, you have some surprises for me today?
No, because I know you as a guy. I mean, I remember it wasn't that, well, it was probably several years ago that you did a screen test for a major movie, and I'm not going to mention any names here, and after the screen test you called the appropriate people and said, I don't want to be in this movie because your co-star
How'd you hear
sprung
about
stuff
that?
on that. You told me.
Did I? Oh.
Yeah.
It's a lie. No, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And I don't blame you.
No, he was just impossible to work with. I just couldn't work with him.
And what was he doing that was offensive?
He was grandstanding on my screen test.
So if you'd say something, instead of working with you, he'd make fun of what you just did.
Yeah, and be playing the camera, and it's like, Jesus, if he's like this on my screen test, what's he going to be like to work with?
Well, that's exactly what he is like to work with.
Yeah, and they said, Alan, it's only a movie. I said, wait a minute. I said, after it's over, it's only a movie. For the 12 weeks I'm making it, it's my life.
And you really didn't, and as a matter of fact, the person that played that part, it was an incredibly miserable experience
That's what I gathered.
for that person.
There was punching of producers and lady producers even.
Now, would you describe yourself as more easygoing than when we first met, which would have been, when we first met, we go back to the early 60s, I think.
We met...
In the early 60s.
I think it was...
You were in Enter Laughing.
No,
or you were about to
no,
be
we
in.
met before that, Chuck.
In what? In Trials of
We
O'Brien.
met in the 40s.
Not the 40s. No, it was the 30s. We both went west, because there was no food.
We met on a show. We met on a show, a television show, and I had my first part, and I had 4 lines, and I was petrified. And you had a bigger part, and I said, God, this guy's got such a plum. He's got dignity. You could talk to people in between shots, in between scenes.
And you were just there, like, sulking.
Yeah, I was terrified. I was petrified.
How do you feel when you see someone like Chris Guest do those imitations of you? Does that amuse you? Or
Yes, very much, yeah.
See, because now I have, who is it, Dana Carvey doing them on me. He did it a couple weeks on Saturday, and I never want to know anything. You weren't concerned that it would make you self-conscious? Because he wasn't doing you as an actor, he was doing you
as a person.
As a person.
It was very funny. Did you see, it was on the Joe Franklin show. He was pretending it was the Joe
and you were very irritated.
I didn't want to be there, yeah.
And you were irritated. Well, you had never been on the Joe Franklin show.
No, I'd never been on the Joe
But you'd seen the Joe Franklin show.
I saw it once, yeah. My wife was on the Joe Franklin show, and he asked her how she liked the ball game. Something like that. That's what he asked.
Well, Joe Franklin was great. He would say, the prerequisite to being a guest on the Joe Franklin show was, so how do you feel about ties? I see you're wearing a tie. and you know what? It was on for like 35 years because people enjoyed hearing people talk.
So who's going to win the game?
Yeah, right. Now that's is that a suit? Do you like to buy a suit? You enjoy a suit. So you're in a movie now with Nick Nolte. And,
yes, I'm in a movie with Nick Nolte.
And it's, what's it called?
It's called Mother Night.
Mother Night. Wasn't there something called Night Mother?
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
But this is Mother Night.
Yes.
That was a Marcia Norman play, I believe.
I
Night
think
Mother.
that was, yeah. Are you reading all this stuff?
No, actually, there's no cards anywhere. Should we get a shot around? Let the audience see what I'm looking at here. There's nothing here.
You knew that all by yourself?
I know all that stuff.
Yeah, no, Mother Night is a book by Kurt Vonnegut, which was made into a screenplay and is now a motion picture.
And it comes out when?
It's out.
Oh, it is out.
Yes.
And you're definitely in it, because you wouldn't appear for something you're not in. Is that the way you are?
I usually only appear for things I'm not in.
You would show up to promote Gone with the Wind or something, for example.
I wouldn't promote Gone with the Wind, but I promote Gandhi, and I wasn't in that, although people call me Ben Kingsley a lot of the time. Mr. Kingsley, Mr. Kingsley. Yeah, I know. I'll tell you a funny story.
Yeah.
Adam gets confused with Clooney's a lot. With
Adam Arkin, who's on Chicago Hope, with George Clooney.
He gets confused with George Clooney. And somebody was chasing him down the street a couple of weeks ago. He says, George, give me your autograph, give me your... He says, I'm not, don't call me George. And the guy says, oh, excuse me, Mr. Clooney. But the best thing that happened to Adam, about 2 years ago, he was standing on a movie line, and a lady tapped him on the shoulder, and she said, I know you. He says, you're Alan Alda's father. He says, lady, you're wrong in every conceivable way.
So you spent most of your time watching the O.J. Simpson case on television, when it was. And you follow it very carefully?
No.
Mm-hmm. Did you follow the election very carefully?
No. I was busy having a nervous breakdown. I had no time. I knew Clinton was going to win.
Did you take medication for that?
For the nervous breakdown?
Yeah.
Did I take medication? Medication. Did I for the nervous breakdown?
You've never had a nervous breakdown.
No, I haven't.
But there was a time in your life there where you received a phone call. From an old girlfriend, and you put the phone down and said, "Hold on a minute," and you ran into the other room and hid under the bed. Did I just make that up? It's a story I heard about. You got a phone call from an old girl. Hi, Alan, it's so and so, and you said, "Could you just hold on 1 second, please?" You put the phone down, ran into the other room, and hid under the bed.
I don't recall doing it, but I'll tell you this much, Chuck. If I did do it, it was because there was people around watching, and I thought I would get a laugh. I don't recall everything.
I remember that story. Now
I'm just a jaunty, jolly, happy.
You seem happier than any time since I've met you. Is that true?
When you get old, you get tired. You might as well get happy.
Is it
what
true?
else
Are
is there?
things a little? Are you a little more easygoing than you were?
I'm a lot more easygoing.
You are?
A lot more easygoing.
And how did you get to be more easygoing?
How did I get? Well, 30 years of meditation for one thing.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Not medication.
No, not medication. Meditation. Meditation.
There's a lot of people for 30 years of medication somehow get easygoing too.
Some of the people from TM say to me, "Do you do TM?" And I say, "No, I just do M."
But you really are. I mean, there's something about you now that's really different. I mean, you were a guy that if you said hello to you, you would say, "Hey, don't start."
Well,
but hello is a start.
No, it wasn't that. It was that I was afraid of everybody's motives.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, I was afraid of people.
What did you think their motive was? What did you think? They wanted
I thought
something?
they wanted to put me in prison. My parents were blacklisted, and it had a very big effect on me. When I was a young teenager, I had to live through that whole period, and it was terrifying. We had the FBI in front of our house for years, and I grew up in that circumstances. And
I didn't even know that. Really?
Well, I don't talk about it a lot,
Really?
and I would don't ever mention it
No,
on
I wouldn't.
television.
Because this is, we don't. It's the audience. With all due respect, a couple people.
So that took a toll.
Because I remember when we went down and we worked together on Catch 22 in Guaymas, Mexico. I remember all this stuff. We got off the plane, and you came over and asked me how I was doing or something. This is at the airport. We were down there for several months. And you said, "How you doing?" And
4 months.
And I answered. Then they went on to Rome and other places. And I answered you, and you said, "Okay, now I don't have to talk to you anymore."
Oh, but I was kidding.
I know you were. I know you were.
You knew I was joking.
I knew you were joking.
We got along very well on the movie. I
always,
think that our stuff in that movie is some of the best stuff in the film.
We always got along very well, even including.
You know what I regret? I
Yeah.
really regret that you and I haven't worked together more.
Well, I'm not in the field anymore, so that could put a little hindrance on that possibility.
Well, we could do.
We could do this. We're working together right now. When I mean,
I have a lot of opinions. Maybe I can get a talk show.
That's right. You have a lot of opinions.
You could be on my
and you're freer to. I'd love to be on your show. So what the heck? You'd say you look a little more tense than when I first met you. No, it's been my goodness. Let's see. It's been, how long has it been since Alan's been out here? It's been about 10 minutes, right? No, I mean it's been all these years, 30. No, more, like 35, 36 years. I don't think we ever really...
It was longer than that, Chuck.
Well, in the late 50s when we maybe worked with Peter Falk, right?
My son Adam is 40 years old.
Is he?
Yeah, so we...
And he was my buddy in '69.
What are you protecting your age for? But
I wasn't even here.
You're
We
an
weren't
expert
hanging.
on television.
We weren't
You can be
hanging
any age at all.
We
It
weren't
doesn't
hanging
matter how
out
old you
in
are.
the 40s.
We weren't...
Were you in Grapes of Wrath with Henry Fonda? What is this?
Henry Grape.
And you were to stand by for Francis
No,
X.
no, no,
Bushman.
but Adam is 40 years old, and it was before I was
Well,
married.
that was in '69. But I know Adam was a buddy of mine, and we're coming to the end of this.
Have we accomplished anything with this?
What was the name of the movie again?
What movie?
That movie, Mother Night.
Yes.
Mother and I just did Night Mother. And you know what? We're going to go to a break. We're going to come back with a final thought. This gentleman will stay with me, and we'll let him have the final thought. Be right back. Here for our guest final thought is Alan Arkin. Your final thought, please.
My final thought for the day is that everybody should spend a few minutes every day thinking about nothing whatsoever.
In other words, is that meditation? Is that what you're trying?
Yeah.
Just think
But
about.
that's a kind of, I was trying to be a humorous.
No, that's good. That's a kind of a.
Is there always an attempted humor? You
No,
could,
no, but it's a serious. You were serious too, right?
But you could smile.
No, but it's a smile, but you mean it.
It needed this kind of ha 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 ha.
Oh, I should have done that.
Oh, you should have kind of.
Everybody
yes.
should spend a few minutes a day thinking about nothing whatsoever, and Anyway. I'm sure he's right, because he's a very smart and gifted man, and he's starring in a new movie, and if he's in it, it's got to be about something, and it's called Mother Night. Thanks for watching, everybody. Good night. Good night, Mom. I love you.
Politics is about power.
From the people in power to the power of the people.
We're going to start with